The dust in Goldridge tasted like betrayal. Ella Harmon knew that taste well. It had been on her tongue for 6 months, ever since they put her husband Jacob in the ground and his half-brother's shadow fell over her life like a permanent winter. She stood at the edge of the crowd, one hand on the curve of her belly where Jacob's child grew. 7 months. A constant reminder of everything she had to lose. Her other hand clutched a simple gold ring, her wedding ring, the last thing of value she had in this world. In the center of the square was a crude iron cage. Inside, a man knelt. He was built of mountain and shadow, his hair as black as ravine water. Wounds crisscrossed his back, blood dried to rust against his copper skin. Next to him, a small boy, no more than 6, clung to his leg, his eyes wide with a terror too deep for tears. "Next up," the auctioneer bellowed. "This savage was caught poaching on company land. Calls himself Nathaniel Redpath." The crowd jeered. "What am I bid for this beast? Comes with the pup." Laughter cut through the square. A few coins clattered against the iron bars. Ella's eyes locked on Edgar Harmon, her brother-in-law. He was laughing the loudest. The same man who'd feigned sympathy at Jacob's funeral before kicking her out of her own home. The same man who now wanted to erase every last trace of his brother from this world, including his unborn child. $5! Someone shouted. In the cage, the man hadn't moved. His body was a shield for the boy, and the boy's haunted eyes suddenly found Ella's. It was like looking in a mirror. She saw the same hollowness, the same expectation of loss. In that one look, a choice was made. "Sold for 5, the auctioneer began. "Wait!" Ella's voice was a dry whisper, but it cut through the noise. She pushed through the crowd, their whispers following her like vultures. She walked to the block and held out her hand. Her wedding ring gleamed in the sun. "I'll give this," she said. The auctioneer's eyes went wide. He snatched the ring. "Sold!" he boomed, pointing at her. "To the widow!" The crowd fell into a stunned silence. Edgar lunged forward, his face purple with rage. "Have you lost your mind?" he snarled, gripping her arm. "Wasting good gold on this animal?" Ella met his cold eyes. "The key," she said to the auctioneer, ignoring him. The heavy iron key dropped into her palm. She walked to the cage, her hands trembling as she worked the rusty lock. The crowd watched, waiting for the savage to attack, waiting for her to get what she deserved. The lock clicked. The cage door swung open. The man, Nathaniel, watched her, his body coiled, ready. Ella took a step back. "My cabin is 2 miles up Trinity Pass," she said, her voice quiet but clear. "You're free to come or go as you please." Then she turned and walked away, not looking back. Edgar's voice chased her. "You'll regret this, Ella. When that savage slits your throat, remember I warned you." She kept walking, the weight of her child a heavy anchor in a world trying to sweep her away. She had traded her past for a stranger's future, and she had the terrible feeling the price was going to be much higher than a gold ring. The path to the cabin was a steep, lonely climb. Ella didn't look back, but she could hear them. The soft, near-silent footfalls of the man and his son, following her like ghosts. The child inside her pressed against her ribs, and a sharp pain made her stumble. Before she could fall, a strong hand gripped her arm, steadying her. Nathaniel was there, his eyes the color of a winter sky, his face unreadable. "The baby," he said. It wasn't a question. "I'm fine," she lied, catching her breath. He let her go, but stayed closer after that, a silent guardian just a few steps behind. The cabin was a wreck, a sagging roof, a broken door, a cold hearth. It was all Edgar had left her. She pushed the door open and stepped into the damp, lonely dark. She expected them to follow, but they stayed outside. Nathaniel's eyes swept over the cabin, then the trees, the stream, the slope of the hill. He wasn't looking for shelter. He was looking for escape routes. He guided his son to a spot under the small overhang, then disappeared into the woods. Ella's heart sank. Had he just been waiting for his chance to run? But he came back. He came back with an armload of dry wood. He didn't speak. He just worked, splitting kindling with a rock, building a small, smokeless fire just outside the cabin door. He would accept her shelter, but he would not be her guest. He would not be indebted. She made a thin soup and set a bowl outside for them, with half of her last loaf of bread. From the window, she watched him feed his son first. The boy's eyes were heavy, his small body slumped with exhaustion. As darkness fell, she lit a single candle and put it in the window, an old habit from when she waited for Jacob. A small light against a big darkness. She lay on her pallet, listening to the wind, her mind racing. What had she done? High on the ridge above, Edgar Harmon lowered his spyglass. He'd watched them all the way. The pregnant widow, the half-breed, the silent child. Stupid woman, he muttered. He spurred his horse, a sleek bay that had once been Jacob's. Everything had been Jacob's. The house, the land, their father's respect. Edgar had gone to war, had come back with medals and nightmares. And for what? To be second best. The will had been the final insult. The bulk of the Harmon estate left to the younger son. Edgar had hidden it, of course, claimed it never existed, and Jacob, trusting fool, had never questioned it. But then Jacob had started acting strange, riding into the mountains for days, meeting with that savage, writing in that damn journal. He'd found something. Gold. Edgar was sure of it. Jacob's death in the mine had been an accident, a convenient one, but it hadn't solved the problem, because of the journal. And because of Ella. Now she was pregnant. A true-blood Harmon heir. A direct threat to everything Edgar had taken. He needed to prove her unfit. And what could be more unfit than a woman living alone with a savage? The Reverend Armstrong would help. The preacher hated the natives with a holy fire. It would be easy to turn the town against her. By spring, it would all be his. The land, the gold. And maybe even Ella herself, once she'd been properly broken. The sound of hammering woke Ella from a shallow, restless sleep. Nathaniel was on the roof, fixing the shingles. The boy, Daniel, sat on a stump, watching. He still hadn't spoken, but there was a flicker of curiosity in his eyes now. "Winter's coming," Nathaniel said when she came outside. It was all the explanation he offered. A leaking roof in the Sierra was a death sentence. She tried to carry water from the stream, but the buckets were too heavy. The next time she looked, a perfectly carved wooden yoke was sitting on her doorstep, designed to distribute the weight across her shoulders. It was a gift of silent understanding. That night, it rained. Nathaniel and Daniel finally came inside, huddling by the door, keeping their distance. Daniel slept, but Nathaniel kept watch, his eyes reflecting the firelight. A week later, Owen Miller, an old friend of Jacob's, rode up to the cabin. "Edgar's turning the town against you, Ella," he said, his voice low. "Him and the Reverend, preaching about the dangers of savages. He's trying to get the court to declare you unfit. He wants to be named guardian of the child." Ella's blood ran cold. "He can't." "He can if the law says you're unstable," Owen said grimly. "And with you up here?" He glanced at Nathaniel. "It won't be hard to convince them." Nathaniel's hand rested on the back of her chair, a small, protective gesture. "There's something else," Owen said, his eyes finding Nathaniel's. "Edgar's been talking about what Jacob found up here, about a promise you made him." Nathaniel's face was a mask of stone. "Whatever it is," Owen finished, "I reckon that's what he's really after. The baby's just his way of getting it." After the old man left, the cabin was filled with a new, heavier silence. "Why are you helping me?" Ella finally asked Nathaniel. "You don't owe me anything." He looked at his son, sleeping by the fire. "You gave up something precious for strangers," he said. "That deserves loyalty." It wasn't the whole truth. She could feel it, but it was enough for now. That night, a thunderstorm rattled the cabin. Ella woke to find Daniel sobbing in the corner, terrified by the noise. Nathaniel was outside, checking the perimeter. She went to the boy, wrapping him in a quilt. "I get scared sometimes, too," she whispered, and told him a story about a brave rabbit, just as her mother used to do for her. He fell asleep leaning against her. When Nathaniel returned, he found them huddled together. He didn't speak, just settled on the floor nearby, a silent guardian through the storm. The next morning, Ella was sweeping when her broom hit a loose floorboard. Beneath it was a hidden compartment. Inside, wrapped in oilcloth, was Jacob's journal, and a map, and a loaded revolver. Her hands trembled as she opened the journal to the last entry. E followed us again. N says we must be more careful. There are those who would kill for what we found. I fear my brother's greed has no limits. The equipment failures at the mine are too frequent to be coincidence. If anything happens to me, E must not find the claim. N will protect it until my child is old enough. Murder. It wasn't an accident. Edgar had killed him. She unfolded the map. A section of the mountains marked with an X. Below it, Jacob had written, "The Eagle's Nest, richest vein in the Sierra, to be shared equally with N and his people." N was Nathaniel. They had been partners. Suddenly, a scream ripped through the air. Daniel. Ella grabbed the revolver and burst out of the cabin. Daniel was running from the stream, a massive mountain lion stalking him, its tail lashing. She raised the gun, but her hands were shaking too badly. Then Nathaniel was there, a blur of motion, scooping his son into his arms, turning to face the beast with nothing but a knife. The cat sprang. An arrow hissed through the air, striking the cat in mid-leap. It fell, thrashing. A second arrow silenced it. A woman in buckskins stepped out of the trees, another arrow already knocked in her bow. Nathaniel stared at her, his face a mask of shock. "Willow," he breathed. Daniel squirmed in his father's arms, and then he spoke, a torrent of words in a language Ella didn't know. The woman, Willow, answered him. Then she looked at Nathaniel. "We thought you were dead." "This is Willow," Nathaniel said to Ella, his voice strained. "My wife's sister." "Your wife?" Willow's eyes darted to Ella. "Rebecca is dead," Nathaniel said. "Murdered. By white men." He set Daniel down. "This woman, Ella, she bought our freedom." Daniel ran to Ella's side. "Mama Ella," he said, his voice clear. "She helps." Ella's eyes filled with tears. Willow's gaze softened. "You are with child?" she asked. "Murdered," Ella said, meeting her eyes. "By the same man who now wants my baby." An understanding passed between the two women. Willow turned to Nathaniel. "We survived the attack. We have been hiding in the high valleys." "You should go with her," Ella said. "You'll be safer." Nathaniel looked at her, at the revolver in her hand, at the journal she had tucked into her dress. "I made a promise," he said. But the arrival of his family and the revelation of Jacob's journal had changed everything. They were no longer just three fugitives. They were two families, bound by murder and a secret worth killing for. And with winter closing in, the mountain was about to become a battleground. Winter came down like a hammer, burying the world in a deep, silent white. The cabin became their fortress, a tiny island of warmth in a sea of cold. They settled into a strange new rhythm. 4 adults, 2 children, all trapped together by the snow and a shared enemy. Willow, Nathaniel's sister-in-law, was a warrior. She moved with a quiet, lethal grace, teaching Ella how to read tracks in the snow, how to use a knife for more than just peeling potatoes. She taught her how to fight. Daniel, now that he had found his voice again, blossomed. He chattered in a mixture of Miwok and English, a bridge between their two worlds. He called Ella Mama Ella, and the name settled in her heart like a prayer. Nathaniel was their rock. He hunted, he chopped wood, he kept watch. He and Jacob had been more than just friends, they had been brothers, bound by a shared respect for the land and a secret that had gotten one of them killed. The secret was in the journal. "Edgar led the raid on my village," Nathaniel said one night, his voice low as he stared into the fire. "He wore a gold company watch. He dropped it when they set the lodges on fire. I kept it." He pulled the dented watch from a pouch around his neck. It was proof. "Jacob knew," Nathaniel continued. "He confronted Edgar. That's why he was killed. The mine accident was no accident. So Edgar hadn't just stolen her home. He had stolen her husband, her child's father, and he would be back. The tracks Willow found were the first warning. Men on the ridge, watching. Not Edgar's men. Their tracks were clumsy. These were different. Then Owen Miller, their friend from town, risked the storm to bring news. "Armstrong the preacher is stirring up trouble," Owen gasped, shaking snow from his coat. "Telling everyone you're possessed by the devil for living with savages. But it's Edgar who's pulling the strings. He's filed papers. He's claiming you're unfit. He's coming for the baby." The pieces clicked into place. Edgar didn't just want the gold. He wanted the Harmon heir. With Ella declared insane and her child in his custody, he would control everything. The land, the mine, the gold. "When are they coming?" Willow asked, her hand on her bow. "First light," Owen said. "A dozen men. He's even bringing the doctor, in case the shock sends Ella into labor." The sheer cold-blooded cruelty of it took Ella's breath away. They had to run. But the passes were snowed in. They were trapped. "There is another way," Nathaniel said. "A path through Eagle's Nest Valley, the sacred place." Willow protested. It was forbidden to bring outsiders to their sacred land. "Jacob was there," Nathaniel said. "He respected it. Ella is his family." A tense silence filled the cabin. Finally, Willow nodded. They decided not to run. They would make their stand. "Armstrong's hatred has made him careless," Ella said, a new steel in her voice. "He'll follow where we lead." The plan was desperate. They would lure Edgar and his men into the sacred valley itself. On their ground, they packed what they could, leaving the cabin to look occupied. A banked fire, a single lantern in the window. The journey through the hidden pass was brutal. Ella, her body heavy and aching, pushed on, refusing to slow them down. By dawn, they reached the valley. It was a natural fortress, surrounded by towering cliffs. They weren't alone. Other Miwok survivors, summoned by a secret message from Willow, were already there, warriors with bows and grim, determined faces. But a new message came. Edgar had more men than they thought. 20 of them. Mercenaries. They were outnumbered. "Take Ella and the children to the cave," Nathaniel ordered. "Keep them safe." From a high ledge, Ella watched as Edgar, Armstrong, and their men rode into the valley below. Nathaniel stepped out to face them, alone and unarmed. "This is sacred ground, Armstrong," he called. The preacher's face twisted with hate. "This land belongs to those who can take it, savage, just like your whore of a wife belonged to me before she ran back to your kind." So that was it, the root of his poison. His Miwok wife had left him for one of them. "My quarrel is with you," Nathaniel said. "It will end here," Armstrong screamed, "with your death." He gave the signal. The valley exploded into chaos. Arrows flew, men shouted, guns roared. The battle was a blur of brutal, desperate fighting. Willow went down, an arrow in her shoulder. Nathaniel was fighting 2 men at once, his knife a silver blur. The snow turned red. Daniel screamed. Hope began to wail, a tiny, piercing cry against the thunder of the guns, and then another sound, hoofbeats, from the north. Sheriff Durant and a posse of townsmen, led by Owen Miller, burst into the valley. "Drop your weapons!" Durant roared. The fighting stopped. Armstrong, his face a mask of fury, saw his plan crumbling. He saw the will, Jacob's will, in Owen's hand. He saw the truth laid bare. With a final, desperate scream of rage, he spurred his horse toward Nathaniel and fired. The bullet hit Nathaniel in the chest. He fell. Before Armstrong could fire again, an arrow took him in the throat. He toppled from his horse, his evil finally silenced. Ella ran, stumbling through the snow, her heart a block of ice. She reached Nathaniel's side, falling to her knees. "Please," she choked, "don't leave us." His eyes fluttered open. "Ella," he whispered. Then his eyes closed. A medicine woman from the village, an elder named Singing Bird, was suddenly there, her hands already working, stopping the bleeding. "He lives," she said. "His spirit is strong. He chooses to stay." The aftermath was a strange, quiet blur. The will was red. Jacob had left everything to Ella and their child, with one condition: The Eagle's Nest Valley was to be held in trust for the Miwok people forever. Justice had come to Goldridge. Weeks later, Nathaniel was still healing, but he was alive. "What will you do now?" Ella asked him one evening as they sat by the fire in her rightful home, the Harmon house in town. He looked at her, at the newborn, Hope, in her arms, at Daniel playing quietly on the floor. "What I want," he said, his voice soft, "is to see Hope grow strong, to hear Daniel laugh again, to be with you, Ella Harmon, however you will have me." The words were a promise, spoken in the quiet space between two worlds, and in that quiet a new family was born, not of blood, but of choice, of courage, of a hope that had refused to be buried. They say the frontier was built by gold and guns, but sometimes it was built by something stronger. If you believe in the power of hope to change the world, let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe, because there are always more stories waiting in the shadows.